out. Here's trouble. Jim Does Supercoach AFL. That's right. G'day, legends. Just wanted to jump on quickly. It is a Thursday. We usually do this show on a Wednesday, but I was out drinking all day yesterday, so you get that on the big jobs. Just quickly wanted to do a bit of a team reveal, talk through a couple of little issues here and there with your Supercoach teams, and also kick the tyres on some forwards. So very quickly, we're just going to smash through this one for you today so you can go into lockout tonight feeling pretty good about yourself, hopefully. How'd you go last week is always the big question. I scored a 2,277. So 2,277 last week. That ranked 20,000th. That was enough, though, to see my rank change 6,318. So I'm up to 21,000 overall. Top 12%. And I think this has been the ongoing joke. Like, it's jumping out of that top 14, like 12 to 14% week on week is wildly difficult. But, hey, we're going to keep on giving it a crack. Feeling pretty good about this. You know, the trades we made last week with the 2277 last week, a lot of that was actually getting the VC loop correct. Had the VC on Grundy, 151, double that up. He came in for me, if you remember last week's show. I had Grundy, Anderson, and Will Lewis come in place of Jai Sarong, Jagger Smith, and the injured Sam Darcy. So a little bit of a sort of one upgrade, double downgrade for me, just to free up a bit of that cash. And I think that's worked pretty nicely because then this week I can make a pretty easy Kozzie trade if I need to. We'll get to that in a second. But even after that happens, I've still got a bit of cash in the bank as well. So, I don't know, heading into round 8, doesn't this feel like a bit of a luxury trade week? Because no one massive has gotten injured. Isn't that just nice? We don't have to desperately trade out one of our presumed lock and load primos. For it feels like the first time ever. Like even Sam Darcy last week, it's like, oh, come on, man. So a bit of a rough one. But this week, it feels like we're okay. And if you look at who's been traded in and traded out, that's exactly what it is. So the most traded in players, obviously, this week, Patrick Rechko out there on Richmond, he's flying. They've got the Eagles this week. You've got Liam Reedy on the Blues. Naz is coming in for folks. JHF is coming in for folks. Petrarca, Luke Jackson. Cherry came back and was awesome last week. Actually went up in price. He's still got a massive break even. But then you got Kozzie, Archie Roberts, Brent Daniels. So a lot of that is like, all right, cool. A couple of cash cows, and then we're all upgrading. So that's kind of a nice spot to be rather than desperately trading sideways. Because if you look at the traded out players this week, it's Lachlan McAndrew, a cash cow that has matured to 363K. Very nice. Same with Jagger Smith. He still went up a little bit. He went out for me last week. He rose 3.3K. He's still, like, if you don't want to trade him out, that's fine. But as a Blues supporter, I watch his role and I'm like, I've never been angrier. But he's also not going below his break even, so he's okay for the minute. Tom Blamires, he's also gone to 281K. He was rested last week. Just keep an eye on teams for him this week. He's still got plenty of cash to make if you want to keep him around. Like, I'm not going to panic there. Tanner Bruhn has basically hit the tipping point for his break even. He's been super duper solid, but he's at 398K. It's a great jumping off spot for a mid-pricer. Lockie Jacks is being traded out. I think he's got at least another week or two in him, especially with all of the injuries that your dogs are dealing with. Kitty Coleman, he does have the Dons this week, so I probably would keep him around for at least one more. He could go whack. Leo Lombard's out. Sam Grill has been traded out at 306. Dev Robertson, he's obviously out for the season. And Colby McKercher is the other one. If you've got McKercher, you're sort of staring into the abyss week in, week out. Well, do I trade him? So it does feel like a little bit of luxury trade this week, but you do have some really good cash cows to downgrade to if need be. So, and really, in terms of big injuries and stuff, the coverage, we might even have Tinglish back this week, which is kind of nice. But I think what we're all staring at, isn't it? And this is the thing that I've been dealing with, is like primos, getting the primo mix correct is the biggest one. And I'll talk about forwards in a second because that's where I'm going to be making my trades this week. But after bringing in Grundy last week, which meant shifting Bont to my centre spot, I'm going to roll with McAndrew again at R2 for one more week. We'll see how he goes. Maybe the week after as well. But the primos have sort of been underperforming a little bit. If you had LDU, he had 74 this week. Holmes had 80, 49 for Ralph. But this means we get some underperforming, undervalued primos coming up in the next few weeks, just heading into the buys, which are perfect upgrade targets, right? So you look at McCluggage, you look at Callahan. You've got a whole bunch of dudes out there that you can sort of just kick the tires on. Matt Rao is going to drop another 36K. Zorko is going to drop a bunch, right? So you've got these maybe not so much fallen primos, but at least cheapo primos. And that's like, even looking at Bont, he's now at 603. And if you paid through the nose for him, like, oh, dude, because I didn't start the season with him because I'm an idiot, you can go and get him on the cheap now. He does have a tough one this week because they do play Freo, but again, they're at home. He should still score pretty handily, especially if Tinglish comes back. So fallen primos is pretty hard. But it means we'll get some cheaper primos and we'll be able to change up the look of our midfields. I feel okay with some of mine. Like, I've had Lachie Neale locked and loaded for from the start. Sam Walsh is still in my team. Sarong, he had 76. He's been a bit underperforming as well. It's a bit of a worry, but look, as soon as we're getting full primos, then we can start swapping, you know what I'm saying? So, other issues, I mean, you've got Gawn playing forward last week, which depressed his a little bit. Heaney missed out. That's not great. Anytime anyone plays the Swans or the Cats, you got to look out for the James Jordan or the Oisin Mullen tag, so that's not great. Todd Marshall missed last week with an illness. He should be good to go this week. Rested for Blamires, as I mentioned. And keeping in mind, we might have more DPP players in the next few weeks, which is kind of nice. You might see Merritt get a forward designation, which would be fantastic because I think he's second overall. If he had a forward next to his name as well as mid, he'd be second, I think, behind the Sheez. So that's kind of nice. You might even get Angus Angry Anderson as a mid-forward. Milan Murdoch is a mid-forward. That'd be nice, being able to change around that forward and midfield a little bit more. Jeez, because it's killing me at the moment. But I guess a lot of the questions heading into this week is like, do you want to trade out Lachlan McAndrew? I don't. He did have a slightly different sort of role this past week, 64% time on ground. They might bring back Riley O'Brien to take on Port and their double kind of ruck-sized dudes. But at the same time, you can score on Port as a ruckman. And then he's got Richmond the week after as well. So I'm going to hold on Lachie McAndrew because if he just goes whack against one of those two, suddenly he gets a price reset and we've got bigger things to worry about. Blamires as well. I think I'm okay just holding him. If you look at the way he's played, his scores, he's got a break even to 28. He's been super duper solid. He's gone 70, 79, 85, 56, 79, 61. So I think if he gets named, you're all good. I think, again, we've got other fish to fry, really. Bruin didn't train on Monday, but I think, as I said, he's probably going to go out for me this week. The other little bits and bobs, I guess, the players who went absolutely ham this week. It was Grundy, so I did nail that VC. He was the highest scoring player of the week. He had Cherry with 150, comes back with an absolute bang. The funniest thing about Cherry is that his break-even's 192. He does play Geelong this week. He might be going up against Edwards. He might get that break-even. So if you've got Cherry, I'm just saying. You had Naz with 149, Pendles 148. He's now going to miss, though. That's the thing. They're resting Pendles to get him through to this game's milestone. Luke Jackson, one of the great calls this year that I've had, 147. Feeling good about that. Shai Bolton tore up the Blues, 142. Jordan Sweet, 141. Look, basically, the great ruck panic heading into the season was fine. Guess what? Ruckman still score plenty. It's completely fine. Archie Roberts has been roll gold, 140 for him. Jordan Dawson, a big emotional bounce back for him, 138 as well. McAndrew was the 10th top scorer, 138. He's an interesting name, I think, as his sort of game matures, and I think the Gold Coast have been peppered down back, but that's easily his best score of the season, and the first score he's gone over 84. So McAndrew's probably not quite on my radar right now. But what are we going to do this week, Jim? Well, there's some good cash cows, as I mentioned, right? So Patrick Rechko, he'd go up like at least 50, 60 grand, depending on how much he scores against the Eagles. You got Liam Reedy, who go up 50 grand if he just scores half decently. Josh Lindsay, if you've got him in your back line, he was absolutely awesome in terms of Supercoach scoring for the Eagles last week. Rips off a 132. So now we've got an absolute ripper cash cow in our back line. That's got an awesome price reset and will keep making us cash, which is very nice. So, Angry Anderson, he's going to keep going up. He had a very solid Anzac Day game, 73 for him. He's at 179. He'll keep making money. And that's, it feels pretty good. I don't mind this. So, in terms of the other ones out there, what are we looking at? I mean, Rechko comes in for me because he plays the Eagles this week. He could go absolutely massive. Should be a fascinating game between Richmond and West Coast. Liam Reedy, though, look, he is a ruck forward, which makes it very handy just to pop him on the forward spot if you need to. At 119, he could also be a rolling donut. If Pitto misses any more time, though, Reedy is a good plug-and-play option if you need him. So I can see the value in that. The problem is, I think, of all the things I need to do this week, having Liam Reedy come in for somebody, I don't really need that one so much. So, but if you want to have that guy, I'm okay with it. So the big one I wanted to ask this week was, look, I'm sort of like sitting there with the Tanner Bruhn, Jack Watkins trade dilemma, right? Watkins held him. He ended up losing a little bit of cash this week. It doesn't really bother me too much when it's like that sort of rookie, but also you got to move on from it at some point. So you actually got a bit of cash gen. So this is the week, which means I've got my pick essentially of the forwards that I could bring in. And essentially when you're looking at this, when you've already got Sheez, you've got stupid sexy Flanders, had Trac, moved him on, trying to bring him back, thinking about that. So all I want to know, who's going to be the top 6 forwards in the end of all of this, right? If you want to jump the gun on Zeret before he gets the DPP designation in after round 11, that's okay, but I think we can also sort of see how they go after the next week or two. But I don't mind that forward planning. But obviously, I reckon 4 of the top 6 have got to be Sheez, Kozzie, Jason Horne-Francis, and Trac, right? Outside of that, we're trying to figure out who the other 2 top 6 forwards might be. Could it be Chad Chunley-Warner, Zach Bailey, Shai Bolton rips off 142 against the Blues last week. J-Mac for the Swans, he has been very, very super duper solid, really high floor, but his upside is sort of like, it always feels just that little bit limited, because I think his average is around 90 something, I want to say. Let's have a look at this, Jim. Justin McInerney, the average is 97.3, so he's the 9th highest average so far, which is pretty good. But I think he's just he had 74 this week, which was like the lowest score I want to say of his entire season. So he dropped 9K. And yeah, so the lowest he'd gone before that was 77. So I don't know, J-Mac's an interesting. You've got the Adelaide pair of Rochelle and Rankin. Took Miller is another big one. Josh Tracy at the moment is averaging a 98.4, but I don't know if you can trust that. Brent Daniels, absolutely carving it up. So I guess with that top 4 that you sort of think, JHF, do you trust that to keep on going? Because he's super cheap right now. That's the question I'm basically deciding on this week. Jason Horne-Francis, he's currently the 10th ranked forward, averaging 96.3. Had 112 last week. He's at 495. Got a break even to 65, so this will be as cheap as he gets for a little bit. Last 2 weeks, he's gone 119, 112 against the Hawks and the Cats. Those are 2 pretty good teams, right? So with all the attention being paid to Butters, he gets off the chain a little bit. He's started off slowly with a 48, and then the 147 against the Bombers, a 75, 85, 88, and then these last 2. I'm going to probably try to get Kozzie into my team first, and then figure out JHF and Trac into the team as well. Stupid Sexy Flanders can be an easy upgrade, I reckon. As good as he's been, I feel like we can do a little bit better. My guess is probably Chad Warner turns a bit of a corner. Heaney didn't play last week. Chad was pretty good. The Swans are just an absolute weapon, though, as a team. So, yeah, I reckon Chad probably gets into the top 6 at some point. And if Zeret gets that designation, look out. So I think what you need to be doing with your trades is going, right, who is going to be the top 6? I need them all in my team. It's very simple. And then you can sort of play around with pods with that 5-6 spot. But the top 4 for now, that's my absolute priority. Get Sheez, Kozzie, JHF, and Trac into my team, ASAP. So, where's the team at this week, Jim? Well, it's pretty simple. My trades this week, we're going to say goodbye to Tanner Bruhn, and we're going to say goodbye to Jack Watkins. In for them come Rechko and Kozzie. Kozzie, the only problem I had this week with him was that they are playing the Swans. And that feels like the James Jordan tag in the middle of the SCG. But Kozzie at the same time has been that good. His break-even is 89 this week. He has been absolutely stellar throughout this season. So 135 against the Blues, 126 against the Suns. The thing is, a lot of his big scores have come at the G. So they play the SCG this week, but then I sort of would rather get him in this week and hope that he can break that tag and still have a really big game against the Swans, because then he's got West Coast the week after at Marvel and could go absolutely ham on them. Then he's got the Hawks, the Dogs, GWS, and Collingwood. But Kozzie is just awesome. I want to get him on my in my team, so in he comes. So Kozzie and Rechko in at the moment for your mans Bruhn and Watkins. So How's the rest of the team look? Pretty good. We've got Naz, Sinclair, Sicily comes back, Houston back, Farrow, and I'll probably put Lindsay on field against the Tigers this week, which feels okay for the Eagles. He was awesome last week. 132, that's a lot of the ball. I've still got Selwood and Jacks on my bench from the Dogs. In the midfield, you got Butters, Dacos, Bont, Lockie Neal, Sam Walsh, Caleb Sarong. We're going to play Murdoch and Rechko on the field this week as well because they're playing against each other. With Blamires, Carroll, who was awesome last week with a 106, so there's a little bit more cash in on the bench as well. And Angie Anderson on the bench too. The rucks at the moment, Luke Jackson with the VC on him this week with Lachlan McAndrew at R2, Zakatelski in the R3. The forwards, Sheez, Pickett, Stupid Sexy Flanders. And this is why I need to upgrade this forward line because then it's Goddard, Braden Cook, and Todd Marshall, who missed last week, with Lombard and Will Lewis on the bench. So sort of hoping that Marshall gets back and plays and scores at least in the 70s or 80s or gives us like a half-decent one in a big showdown this week. And the same thing goes for Braden Cook. Need some big scores out of these guys in the F5, F6. And Goddard playing against the Suns at People First Stadium. Fingers crossed he has a big one too. And then I've got Grundy in my flex. So I guess that just leaves, who are we going with, Captain Jim? Well, have you seen Carlton play? They're not very good. And defensively against midfielders, they are exceptionally lacking. They don't have a lockdown defender. It just stinks. So I'm going to throw the VC on Luke Jackson pending the Tinglish news. If he plays for the Dogs on Friday night, Luke Jackson at Marvel against the Dogs, solo ruck, no Sean Darcy. Luke Jackson should go massive. And then if there's no Tinglish, feeling even better about that. Otherwise, it's maybe the VC on Butters for the showdown on Friday night. But I still trust Jackson to score pretty big. And then I'm going to throw the C probably on Naz because the Blues are horrible and defensively will get carved up by someone with his speed, especially considering that they're playing that game at Marvel. So I'm going to go Naz with the C. So there you go. All right, that's the week. Here's to a big round 8 of AFL Supercoach. Let me know who you reckon the top 6 forwards will be. We'll do some sort of digging for next week, or who I reckon, my final midfield will be, my final defenders, etc. But forwards is my big qualm right now, so let us know what you reckon. Otherwise, that's Jim Does Supercoach for one more week. Here's to a big week of AFL Supercoach. Happy Supercoaching.